And showtime! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network, also a co-host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how you doing?
Doing great, Rich. How you doing?
Doing pretty good too. You can tell just by the lighting, the weird lighting in the room here. I'm in Seattle and the sun is shining. We're not used to this, but we like it. We'll take it.
I'd take it if I were you.
Spring has sprung in Seattle, so fantastic. Shall we dive into the news of the week, Eric?
Let's dive right in, Rich.
This is big news, folks, and it came out on Monday, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised by what we consider our top story. It is the word that SYNNEX and Tech Data will be merging. Two of the biggest names in distribution are going to become one of the biggest names in distribution going forward. And they are expecting that deal to close in the second half of the year. For right now, this is something that they have definitively agreed to do. There are some approvals that need to happen, first and foremost from SYNNEX shareholders, but there's also some regulatory hurdles to get through. But the odds are these two giant companies are going to come together and become one even more giant company with something like $57 billion in revenue today. 22,000 employees, over 1,500 vendors, 150,000 customers in 100 countries worldwide. This is essentially, you're going to go from a situation where you had four big broadline distribution names in SYNNEX, Tech Data, Ingram Micro, and D&H to three. You go back a few years, there used to be Avnet in the equation. The top of the distribution pyramid is getting a little bit smaller. In terms of the logic behind this transaction, a lot of what SYNNEX and Tech Data are talking about is going to hold appeal to investors in terms of the efficiencies these companies are going to be able to realize by doing business together. From a partner standpoint, it basically just means that they're going to have a even more expansive line card and expansive product category. They're really going to be able to cover you end to end. And both of these companies have been investing heavily in recent years in solutions expertise as well. They're really kind of, like distribution generally, progressing beyond the era of pick, pack, and ship. And so they've developed a great deal of solutions expertise and actual solutions that you can purchase and download in cloud computing and cybersecurity and IoT and a lot of these other strategic and emerging markets. And combining their forces in those areas is also going to make those offerings even more comprehensive for their partners. Now, I had an opportunity yesterday. This news was announced on Monday. Yesterday, which would be Wednesday of this week, I spoke with Kirk Robinson, who is the U.S. country chief at Ingram Micro, and Dan Schwab, who is co-president at D&H. The message from Ingram Micro basically was fantastic. Nothing makes you better in the business world than serious competition, and this will be serious competition for us. But same was true when Tech Data acquired the technology solutions business from Avnet, and that certainly didn't hurt us. We are looking forward to this competition, is what Kirk Robinson said. D&H basically said, we are long-term thinkers. We have a long-term roadmap that we are on now, and we are not wavering from that based on this. And they are also not frightened by it. They have been competing with much bigger companies for a long time. They have very strong relationships with their partners, and they feel like they might actually be an even more appealing alternative to some people now that they're competing only with very large broadline distributors. Excuse me just a second here. Sorry about that.
That was keeping beat. That was awesome.
It's a nice little beat. I don't know why that was popping up in the middle of our broadcast here, but it was a nice little musical interlude. D&H and Ingram Micro are saying, kind of what you would expect them to say, that this is not something that is intimidating to us. And really, there isn't any particular reason for either one of those companies to be intimidated. by this. If you are a partner of SYNNEX or Tech Data, I think, as we said, there are some things you can look forward to potentially benefiting from. I'm sure there is some nervousness out there right now as well. If you are working with an account rep you really like at one of these companies, you might be wondering, well, are there going to be staffing cutbacks or realignment? And, will something I like maybe go away? And only time will tell on that kind of thing. Both Ingram and D&H were saying that in these not specifically in this case, but in these kinds of situations, sometimes people who invest in these transactions are looking to reduce costs, and that can be an issue for people. But it's an only time will tell situation, and nothing else, Eric. One thing we know for sure: this will shake up the world of distribution in a big and unexpected way.
That's for sure, Rich. And I was thinking, immediate thoughts came to mind when I, of course, realized on Monday that this was happening. I thought, I thought the word juggernaut, right? So we've got this combining of these forces, and then it's funny. I was going through one of my streaming channels yesterday and looking at some of these I love old science fiction movies, and I was looking at a bunch of the old Godzilla films and things like that. And there was one that I always remembered when I was a kid because it had such an awesome name, Battle of the Gargantuas. It was, so in that vein, right? So I'm thinking, oh, now it's the Battle of the Gargantuas, the juggernauts. So those were the thoughts I had. I also thought, there's a particular type of partner that partners with a SYNNEX or a D&H because of what you mentioned, right? I like the smaller relationship, the smaller approach. I don't really like dealing with the bigger guys and things like that. So I'm interested to see, what the SYNNEX partners think about this. And I do agree with D&H. I think they have an opportunity to message, their approach and cater to folks that may want to work with a more personable. I don't know if it's even saying that makes sense, but it's not the big gargantuas that we're talking about, right? So it'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see how that plays out over time. But boy, that definitely was the drop of the gauntlet here this week for me as well.
And I will say that, and I'll kind of get into specifics on this in just a moment. I think we were all anticipating something involving SYNNEX. Because we've seen Tech Data and Ingram Micro get acquired by private equity just within the last, year and a half, less than a year and a half. And so the next big shoe to drop, obviously, was SYNNEX. If you had asked me a week ago, I probably would have predicted something maybe private equity related, not so much a merger with Tech Data. That definitely took me by surprise. But last observation about this, you go back, call it 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, there were a lot of people who were saying distribution is dead. It's over because it's all about, pick, pack, and ship and shrink wrapped products and finance, and everything's going online. Everything's going as a service. Where's the relevance in that? And we have seen, exactly as we were talking about in terms of the solutions from SYNNEX and Tech Data, we've seen all of these companies, Ingram Micro too, D&H, pivot to this new era of IT. And now we find ourselves somewhat unexpectedly, just a few years after people were predicting the demise of distribution, this has turned into one of the hottest corners in IT. A few years back, Tech Data buys a piece of Avnet, the technology solutions business, for $2.6 billion. Late last year, or actually the deal kind of closed early-ish in 2020, but Apollo Global Management, private equity firm, buys Tech Data for roughly $6 billion. Ingram gets bought last year by Platinum Equity in a deal that's still pending but is likely to close this summer for $7.2 billion. This deal, the SYNNEX Tech Data merger, valued at this point at about $7.2 billion. Huge amounts of money being poured into distributors, just a little while after distribution supposedly wasn't going to be that big a deal in IT anymore.
Right. We're talking about people moving to marketplaces and partners buying online, doing all this stuff. But obviously these stats and the trend that we're seeing, it kind of is avoiding all that and saying, no, we are doubling and tripling down on this, historically tried and true business model in the face of, all this potential change and transition. I mean, if I were still doing, managed services today in my practice, I'd still be buying through distribution. There are so many benefits from working with an internal team that has the ability to help you through pre and post sales and, solution architecture and pricing and bundling and shipping and things like that. I mean, I don't know how, in the new era of, marketplaces and things like that, you could replace that type of support if you are serious about growing your business and being very, very focused on, having a keen eye around reducing costs and leveraging strategic business partnerships, for that growth outcome.
Yep, I completely agree
Mm.
with that. And and if nothing else, what easier way is there, more efficient way is there to procure hardware? And software, it's all going online, but hardware is still going to be a part of pretty much any solution that you're delivering, even if you're not necessarily installing lots of servers at your clients. And yeah, as long as that hardware piece is out there, if for no other reason than that, distribution is going to be relevant, and they can do a lot more than that these days. So Eric, it is time for your tip of the week. We were talking about this off the air before we started recording, and you cited some statistics for me, which actually caught me by surprise a little bit. So go ahead and tell folks what you're talking about this week and what data you collected about this.
Right. So this week's tip of the week is all about fixing your platform integration problems. And Rich, yeah, we were talking about the poll results that I received from doing a webinar today, all about optimizing and integrating our typical business platforms. I'm talking about our PSA solutions, RMMs, documentation platforms, accounting platforms together. And during the webinar, I asked the attendees a simple question, how far have you integrated your business platforms together? And the choices were 0%, 0, less than 25%, 50%, and 100%. And 3% responded 100%. The vast majority responded less than 25%. And so that got me thinking, holy cow, that's like, we always talk about, how much we use our brain power, right? We're like, we use about 10% of our brain power. 90% of it just sits there for the ride. If we're not optimizing and integrating our business platforms together, we are seriously impacting our profitability because we're doing things more manually. We're not automating things. We're being less efficient in service delivery. I mean, there's a whole plethora, and our viewers understand what I'm saying. They get it. But my approach is, okay, well, if we know this, what do we do about it? And my guidance during the webinar today was all around dedicating some time on a regular basis. And I've touched on this in the past on this show, Rich, but when I got those results back from the poll, I thought, holy cow, this is a lot worse than I thought. I figured, we'd probably be around 50%, 75%. Nope, less than 25%. So dedicate some time on a regular basis. And my guidance was pick a guru or a Jedi for each one of these platforms. Don't load it all up on one person to be the optimization and integration person for everything, because if that's all they're doing, guess what? That's all they're doing, because it's a lot of work. So pick a guru or a Jedi for each one of these platforms, prioritize what they need to be doing, and have them spend some dedicated time every week, even if it's just an hour a week, to deal with the prioritization, the prioritized tasks that they have to do in terms of optimizing and then making sure that we're integrating properly so that we can take advantage of automation and automated alerting and self-healing and monitoring. And simply from a PSA perspective, incident escalations and having the service boards constructed properly, and having the reporting accurate, and having our incident types and issue types and sub-issue types categorized properly so that when we run reports, we can see what we're doing instead of having this giant other category. What's in the other category where 60% of our tickets are categories? who knows what's in there, right? And then having all that working with your accounting package so that whether you're invoicing from your PSA or from your accounting solution, all of the information is being integrated accurately so that you can run financial reporting and steer the company based on what's happening and allowing you to invoice and bill properly. And, I could go on and on, Rich, but I mean, just documenting all your clients' environments properly during onboarding so you can deliver service efficiently, things like that. So just, assign someone the responsibility, prioritize, get the low-hanging fruit stuff done first, the things that provide you the most benefit for the least amount of work, like, collapsing some of these, I've got partners that have multiple service boards for no real good reason, right? Simplify, improve your reporting, and then you can make data-driven decisions on how you can grow your organization. I would love nothing more than to hear that our mature MSPs are at 75% or higher from optimizing and integrating their platforms, because that means they're 75% more efficient at delivering service, which equals better profitability.
If you had asked me to guess where the numbers came in, I probably wouldn't have said something like, 75% is the plurality or majority number, but I was a little surprised that that 1 to 25, less than 25% category was where so many people were located. And I get it. You know what I mean? I do kind of get it. You want your techs to be fully utilized, so they don't necessarily have time to do that kind of work. And it is an investment of time and therefore money to do some of this integration stuff. Mm-hmm. But the return on that investment from the long-term perspective is so enormous. And these systems, whether they're from the same software maker or from different companies, the RMM and the PSA systems have gotten so good at opening tickets and closing tickets automatically and sharing information and so on. There's so much that you can do to be more efficient operationally if you are integrating the software and taking advantage of that functionality. To leave it out there, unutilized, for long stretches of time because you're kind of too busy doing other things, it really does. It just, drains money off the bottom line.
Yeah, and I'll make a bold statement, Rich. I think that optimizing and integrating these platforms, and I'm not looking for perfection. I'll fight with 75% or 80%, right? Because, that's good or even great compared to what the poll results said today. But I think that equates probably to the comp of a technician or engineer over a year's time. I mean, think about that, right? So there's probably 100,000 reasons to implement a plan to improve your optimization and integration of platforms if you look at it from that perspective.
There you go, folks. You got 100,000 tips of the week this week from Eric.
Don't take them all at once.
Yeah. Well, that leaves us time with just one more story this week. And Eric, this comes to us from our Your Government at Work department. You mentioned science fiction before, and Game of Thrones, is that maybe more in the fantasy realm than science fiction? I don't know if this is the inspiration for the story we're talking about here. But, apparently in the state of Maine, there isn't too much else maybe for state legislators, to be thinking about right now. There is a bill in the works that may or may not become law in Maine that would permit Viking funeral pyres. So in addition to the other legally authorized ways to deal with human remains, they might add the Viking funeral pyre. Interesting thought, interesting priority. Well, I guess we'll see what the uptake is on that.
Yeah, that's it was a great show on the History Channel, Vikings. Ragnar Lothbrok and all that. I love that. That's going medieval on people. So that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's where this law comes from. Is people writing into their legislator, and they're fans of the show, and yeah, I want that. I want that for Uncle Ed. What that guy got in the I don't know. We'll see. It's not law yet. May or may not become law. If it does, we'll see how many Viking funeral pyres they have in the state of Maine.
I hope not. I hope it doesn't become law.
Well, folks, that is all the time we've got this week for you on the 5-Minute Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you like the show, you want to take a look at some old episodes you didn't get a chance to see, you want to know when the new episodes become available, best thing to do is go to the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube and become a subscriber. If you also click that little bell icon, you'll get notified when we finish up new episodes. You want to read up all about SYNNEX and Tech Data joining forces, the reactions from D&H and Ingram Micro, get all sorts of great business growth advice for your company and keep up with what's happening in the industry. Please visit channelpronetwork.com every day. We have got terrific new content for you going up there on the site every day. To learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, please visit ericksimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. Once again, thank you very much for joining us in the 5-Minute Roundup. We're going to be back again next week with another episode. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.